right, so we are on the way to pick up the steel for Cody's, well, I guess it's not really Cody's, it's Ray's charger frame jig build. We had about a week setback because the mill that they order from, their crane that loads the trucks, is broken. So they had the stuff in stock, they couldn't get it on the truck. It was a mess. So anyway, the crane's fixed. They got the stuff in yesterday afternoon, and we're on our way to pick it up now. So, all right, so we got the steel for Cody's project. Not Cody's. Ray's chassis jig project. We're using Cody's car as a template for Ray's chassis jig. 3 24-foot lengths of 4-inch by 4-inch eighth wall, and 4 eighth wall 2-inch by 2-inch square, 24-foot lengths. Those are for the chassis jig. So this stuff's really heavy. It took me a while to get it all in here. I took a little time lapse of it. And then this is that 2.5 by 2.5 3/16 wall that the 2-inch by 2-inch slides inside of, kind of snug. That's what they make, like that's the receiver hitch size. So raw materials are all stored. I'm gonna go sit down for a minute. Phew. So you probably just watched me pull this underneath Cody's 69 Charger and level it up, make sure it's all planted with all 6 feet bearing the weight of the table. The idea is that the table represents a perfectly level ground underneath your vehicle, your project, for your chassis building, for roll cage, whatever. And that way, any level reference you make on the vehicle, you know is accurate to how level this is. So that becomes really important when you are doing things like adjusting ride height, setting ground clearance for chassis components and stuff like that. So with this in particular, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building a unibody jig. My floor is probably flat enough to build it on the floor, but this way I know I can level everything, and when I go to build the top surface, it'll be level with this, and then we can build the car so that the car sits on top of that level, and it just provides a reference point for everything that you do. This is not the same as like a chassis plate like you'll see in a race car shop. Those are usually like several inches thick, and it's a slab on the floor, and they're like almost perfectly flat and level. This is an imperfect surface. You know, if you're setting a level on it, you got to make sure that you're sitting on it flat. Because this is only 3/16 plate, it has a little bit of a bow to it through the center here. But The main rails front to back and the main cross beams side to side are all showing level. So any critical measurements you need to make, you know you can come down here where this sits flat on the top of the outside rail, and you know that anywhere you measure to is going to be the same on all four corners. Probably the next clip you're going to see is us starting to lay out the steel and get the actual jig framework built with its caster feet and all the bracing and stuff. And then what we'll do is we'll set the car down, and it'll sit, the wheels will sit just outside the jig. And then the idea is that we will build the jig to represent ride height and keep all the frame rails and everything true. The main reason you would build a unibody jig like this is if you're going to be cutting out large sections of the car and you don't want other stuff to shift, and you want to be able to get the replacement parts back in the same place. In the future, Raymond will be able to use the chassis jig to replace frame rails, and you know, when he's cutting out the whole subfloor out of the vehicle, he'll be able to have it on the jig, so he'll know that nothing's going to move, and then he can weld the car back together, knowing that everything's straight and in its proper position. As soon as I cut longer than 8 feet, I'm working outside. Okay, so here's the issue. My saw guide, the blade guide here, is all the way in. See? Can't go in anymore. And I'm almost hitting the material with the corner of it. So you can see if this piece was longer in this direction past the cut, I would not be able to make the cut the rest of the way. Now, it's not a super huge ordeal. I can always, on the other end of this cut, this is going to be a 16-foot piece, I can cut it at 90 first and then cut my 45 with less overhang, right? I'm just getting rid of some of the deformation on this end. That's why I'm cutting back this far. The problem would be if I couldn't have any more waste. And I think I'll be okay for this particular project. But if my footage was tight to the point where I needed this 45 on the off-cut piece to be a certain size and on this size, it just wouldn't fit. The saw just isn't big enough. So the other issue I'm gonna have is on the backside here, this plastic blade protector is touching right now. And it's actually started to make the cut wander. It's gonna be difficult to get a picture of that, but it's pushing the saw this way, right? So it's made the blade wander in the cut a little bit. So I'm gonna lift this back up and take this cover off and see how much room that gains me. Okay, now we have success. We are all the way through our cut. And we are not touching on the workpiece. So, I'm gonna put the plastic guard back on and trim it to fit as well, because I don't wanna lose any skin forgetting that this guard isn't on here and reaching under there to pick the front of the saw up.